morning, compliments of the season. I'm Mickey Campbell, and welcome to a new series of The Big Questions. Now, in this last year, Britain has been shocked to the core by some truly appalling cases of child abuse. Baby P, Shannon Matthews, and the man who fathered 9 children by his own daughters. Is it now time to think the unthinkable? Should unfit parents be stopped from having more babies? Well, that is our first big question. And later, we'll be asking, is Britain still a Christian country? Are Christian values still the dominant moral force in our society? And also, after spending Christmas with your friends, relatives, your offspring, their offspring, some of you might be wondering about our last big question. Are manners overrated? We're in Croydon today at Whitgift School with a local audience, and lounging in the comfy seats we have Hackney Vicar, the Reverend Rose Hudson-Wilkin, Steve Chalk, the founder of the Christian charity Oasis Trust, Kelvin Mackenzie, former editor of The Sun, and the evolutionary biologist and campaigning atheist Professor Richard Dawkins. What a great lineup. Now, we've all been horrified by the story of baby P, who endured appalling cruelty at the hands of his mother, her boyfriend, and their lodger. He lived only 18 months, but baby P's mother became pregnant again after he had been placed on the at-risk register. Now, would it have been better if baby P's mother had been stopped from adding to her family of 4, given her record? The Dutch Parliament is being asked to consider such an idea. It's being proposed by Mario van Dugen. I'll get it right in a minute, don't worry. A Labour MP in the Netherlands. So first things first, how do I pronounce your surname?
Van Deken.
Well, compliments of the season. It's great that you've come over to talk about this. How would you like to see it working?
I would like to see that parents who have proved that they are not able to give a safe environment, a safe family to their children, and they have proved it because the magistrate has taken one of the children out of the family, that they should be stopped for a period of 2 years to give birth to a new child, and use that time to make the situation at home so that their existing child can come back. And if the situation isn't like that, if it's not safe for their existing child to come back, it isn't safe for a new baby as well.
So, Mario, contraception would be administered, yeah?
Yes.
Okay.
Temporarily. And reviewed after 2 years. How's the situation now? And, if necessary, put on another 2 years. By a judge. There has to be a third party considering the whole situation and what's going on here. But we are I've got examples of families with 8 children.
Yes.
One after another. Damaged children.
Heroin addict mothers and alcoholic parents.
Alcohol, heroin, mentally totally confused.
Unfit parents, would you use
unfit parents. Not good enough.
Not good enough.
The standard is not perfect.
Kelvin Mackenzie.
The standard is good enough parenthood. And I'm not seeking for a measurement to punish parents. I'm just looking for a way to help children.
To help children.
And to prevent...
Do we need something like this here?
Yeah, it'd be a stunning idea. Great idea. There are, I think, something like 1 million alcoholics in this country. There are 300,000 drug addicts. All these people are simply spawning children for 2 reasons. One, because they possibly have nothing else to do in their lives. But secondly, these have turned into baby farms. This is a way of not having to go to work normally. They can carry on having the children. They get fantastic state benefits. And the issue is this. How many more baby Ps does this audience want? Do we all want to happen? There will always be terrible examples, I agree with that. What seems to be happening right now is we blame the social workers. I'm not entirely sure that's fair, especially when the parents seem so vile. But we never seem to be able to stop these issues happening. And my bet is we have simply got to say, enough is enough. We must stop certain kinds of mothers, certain kinds of fathers. We don't allow people who've had a car crash where it's been their fault, we don't allow them to carry on driving. We don't allow people who carry on to beat their dogs. We don't allow them to carry on having animals.
You're rather engaging Steve here.
Well, yeah, I actually think it's an awful idea, an absolutely awful idea. I think the idea of state intervention in this way is absolutely extraordinary, forgive me for saying that. I also think that who's going to make the laws? Who's going to decide? Who sets themselves up as judge? And in our culture,
we have judges.
We have so many. We have so
judges.
many dysfunctional people who emerge at the top of society as well as the bottom of society. But the more important thing, the charity that I'm responsible for, we're involved in lots of very poor communities.
1 million children are abused every year in this country.
And Oasis is working, the charity that I launched is working in many communities, poor communities around the country. What we've got to deal with is the deep underlying issues and invest in the lives of people.
But by the time you've dealt with the deep underlying issues, is it not very often too late? And also, we make these...
Short-termism, that's what this is about.
No, I would say it's the contrary. And I hope you excuse me, English isn't my first language, so if I'm hesitating. But no, I want to use the time out, just to improve the family situation. It has nothing to do with wealth or poverty. It has to do... I also knew well-educated parents who are really not capable of giving a safe environment for them.
If we really cared, we'd invest resources into communities that have suffered long, whilst the rich have got richer and the poor have been left.
You're quite right.
Can't you do that? Let me bring Peter in as well. Peter Saunders from the National Association for People Abused in Childhood. Now, there's a lot of people uncomfortable with an idea like this because it conjures up all sorts of thoughts of eugenics and people being prevented from having children. Isn't it a human right to have a child?
I think it probably is a right to have a human child, but I think it's good that we're having the debate. And as extreme as it may sound, I think some things are worth examining. Not that I'm necessarily agreeing with the proposal on the face of it that Mario is making, but our charity, NAPAC, hears from thousands of abuse survivors every month. Thousands. And I think anything that can contribute to preventing future child abuse has got to be worth considering. Having said that, and I think it's a point that Steve Chalk made, and I think it's about changing the culture, the way we treat children generally. We hear from people, yes, we hear from people that have been brutalised by their parents, people who perhaps, had they been a baby P and survived, and thank God most children do survive childhood, would be getting in touch with us now about the terrible treatment that they had at the hands of their parents. But we also hear from people who are at the top of the social tree, who were perhaps put into care by their very well-off parents when they were very young, into things we call boarding schools, as an example. And I'm not knocking all boarding schools.
Well, there's a big spectrum, isn't there? I mean,
exactly. I think it's sometimes unhelpful to just concentrate on one small aspect, when I think that the fact that we're having the debate is most important.
Would that be the danger? That's an interesting point, Rose. It would be concentrated on those at the bottom of the socio-economic tree, just because that is the way that prejudices in society tend to go.
It probably would, but my concern with this proposal is that it is missing the mark. We should be addressing this whole issue right from the start in terms of families. What has happened in our society today is that we've made it so normal and so acceptable for youngsters, for anyone to just get pregnant.
But hang on, can I just put something to you? People have to go through hoops to adopt a child or to foster a child, and we apply all these stringent rules to them. I mean, that's the point, isn't it? I see you nodding. So in your, what is in fact wonderful English, take up the point.
There are no rights without limitation. Parental rights, as the question was asked to my neighbour. Yes, everybody has a right to bring up, or to get pregnant or get children. It's a right, but it has its limitations. It has a duty as well.
Rose.
If you're choosing for a child. And nowadays we can.
Yes, but what I'm saying
wasn't possible
is
for 50
we're
years.
dealing with it far too late. We need to be addressing this issue long before
the first pregnancy.
The first pregnancy.
Yeah.
And what I'm saying is we need, as a society, to stop making it so acceptable for anyone to get pregnant. We need to be having conversations within families, with our children. We need to stop just giving young kids accommodation and smiling at them as if it's all right. It is not all right. And we've made it all right, and that's the problem.
But that's the long haul. That's the long haul. Christina Blacklaws, you are a children's rights lawyer.
Yes.
What right does a heroin-addled mother have to bring a heroin... Have you heard the screams of a baby addicted to heroin?
Oh, absolutely. I mean,
What
20
right-
years' experience, I've represented hundreds and hundreds of children in child protection proceedings.
And you've seen some, I would imagine, horrific things. So what right does that heroin-addled, addicted mother or drink-addled woman who just cannot stop drinking throughout her pregnancy, what right does she have to have a child? When there are people who would yearn to be blessed with a child.
And I have every sympathy with those people. But really, the question must be, what right does the state have to stop people from having children? Should the state, do we want to live in a society which allows the state to say who and who should not have children?
But it's about child protection.
Absolutely.
Isn't it?
Children have a right to be protected, but children also have the right to, if at all possible, be brought up by their parents. That all the research shows that that's actually in children's best interests, and we need to protect that right as well.
Kelvin Mackenzie.
Well, my main point about this is that I actually don't want to be sent the bill, because in the end it's going to be my taxpayer dollars which is going to fund some of these appalling people having children who all their life the bill will be sent back to me and people like me.
Why are these people
don't want
appalling,
that.
though? Why are they, as you put it?
Well, they're appalling in the sense that they need help. They are alcoholics, they're drug addicts, they're mentally confused. I want to give them help. What I don't want to do is then allow them to have children so that even more help has to be given to those children. Let's stop it, and stop it now.
Richard Dawkins.
I think this is an obviously very sensible proposal. We already accept the principle. We already accept the principle that unfit parents are unfit when we take their children away from them. Social workers take children away. If you accept that, then you have sold the past. You have already accepted the principle that there is such a thing as an unfit child. Society already takes that responsibility on its shoulders. Once you accept that, then you have no choice but to say that you also have the right to deprive a parent of the right to have a child in the first place and stop the misery. Now, of course, we can all raise pie-in-the-sky proposals. We must get to the root cause, we must abolish poverty and things. Of course we must do that. Meanwhile, however, we have a society... Here and now, we have a society in which everybody accepts that abused children are taken away from their parents. What is wrong with stopping them having their children in the first place?
Well, let me come back over here, because
there's a huge problem, because this is pie in the sky.
Allow me, Steve, to come back over, because the Bishop of Croydon is here, wants to come in, and I think you want to come back on that point. Just to remind people, should unfit parents be stopped from having more children? That is what we are discussing. Audience, in just a second, if you want to make your point, please do put up your hand, but come back first of all, Christine, on that.
I have had time and time the experience of the unfit parent becoming fit.
Hang on, you say unfit parent. There are unfit parents. You do acknowledge that.
Oh, absolutely. Of course, there are people who should not be in charge of a budgie, let alone a child. So that's without doubt. But there are many people who do overcome their addiction problems, who do get help in relation to their mental health problems, and they do that within the 2-year period.
And when they've done it, they can have a baby, but until they do it, they can't.
But surely that's wrong. Surely, actually, that if they have a baby, and I can't understand the argument that the child has a right not to be born. That doesn't seem to make any sense to me whatsoever. But if a child is born, if a child is born,
we're into a very interesting philosophical area now. Richard Deers pricked up there.
You are depriving a child of the right to be born every time you refrain from sexual intercourse.
But that's not the issue that we're looking at.
Yes, it is.
No, you see, I think we've got a problem
because
here.
That's a choice matter.
No, Richard, you've just said, let's not be pie in the sky, and we're looking at someone here who deals with this issue, but you're rejecting what they say. That's pie in the sky. So let's listen to this lady. It's academia gone mad when we need to listen to people on the ground.
Well, let's listen to somebody else on the ground, or in the audience, if I can put it that way, away from the elevated position, which you four learned friends occupy. Julie, you adopted a little girl, right?
That's right. We have. We got a little girl whose birth mum drank alcohol when she was pregnant with her, and that's why she's got brain damage, and that's why we set up the FSD Trust, a charity to support others in the same situation, bringing up children who have been damaged by alcohol.
And this is the Fetal Alcohol Disorder Trust.
That's
and
right,
this
yeah.
is, there are a million, I think there are 1 million alcoholics, there are 3 million children who have alcoholic parents. That's the figure, which just comes to me. I mean, how is she? Will she ever fully recover?
Oh no, because it's permanent brain damage. The brain is damaged by exposure to the alcohol while the child is still in the womb. So they are born with, well, the medical term is static. It's unchanging. It doesn't improve or get any better.
But she's your darling daughter,
oh, yes.
and she exists, and
oh,
she's
yes.
with you. And don't you thank God for the fact that she was born?
Very much so. She's very definitely a gift to us from him. But in terms of the question, the debate today, I did a straw poll around our parents and carers, and we have everybody from foster carers to birth mums that we support. And I thought their answer would be no, totally against it. Quite interesting, one of our birth mums who used to be alcoholic said she wished somebody had offered this to her. The interesting issue, though, was they all used the word offer. It wasn't forced on them, it was offer. The other interesting point that everybody came back to us and made was it wouldn't work, though, over here because we haven't got the support services. As one of the things that sort of Steve was mentioning, in terms of you've got to work with families and offer them the help and the support so they can become a fit parent. And especially in terms of alcohol abuse, it's been the poor relation in terms of funding and investment over here.
If you talk about support, I mean, Baby P was visited countless times.
60 times,
yeah. By social workers. Views from the audience.
I think I'd like to suggest a middle way. I'm a doctor working in medical ethics. I like the idea of time out. I think we should be having this debate. But the key idea is about fully informed consent. Offer, yes. Coerce, no.
Mario, OK.
It's the question again, does the state have the right? The state has the obligation. According to children's rights, and England has signed that as well, the state is obliged to seek for safety for their children and to prevent harm and to give them a safe environment. So it's not a question. It's not a question if the state should come into the family. The state is already allowed to come into the family. That's what all these organizations are talking about.
But can you understand the reason for some people's distaste? Because of the associations with the, sort of the Nazi regime and people being forcibly sterilised by the state. But, you know, some people do believe it's on the same road, this, don't they?
I've heard that, and I've got that letters as well. But I also got a letter from a grandmother who is taking care of her 2 grandchildren already, and who wrote to me, my daughter has 20 years to come in which she is fertile. She's pregnant again. What are you going to do about it? Give me an answer. I'm getting older as well. Of course, it is very sensitive. And if anybody comes up with a better idea,
you want to hear it?
I'll never present my bill, because I hate it as well. But I don't think we can...
Is it a necessary evil?
It is.
Okay.
And you have to do both things. Help the families, but in the period of the time out. It doesn't help if you add a new problem to already existing
Let's
problems.
have a couple of quick views from the audience. Very quick, if you could. Yes, gentleman in the yellow shirt.
Can I address what Mr. Mackenzie said? He alluded to the young girls having these babies for the benefits.
Yeah.
And I don't think they do it for that reason. If you listen to these young girls, they say they want the babies, and they also want the babies to love them. Yeah. And even working people now would argue that the child benefit payments that they get are not enough to bring up a child.
Karen Matthews was on nearly £300 a week from all the child benefit that she had with her 5 children. Do you think that's a point? The yearning for love, Kelvin Mackenzie? 7 children.
I don't know. The Karen Matthews one was an absolute disgrace. I think she had 7 children from five different fathers, and they lived in terrible circumstances on a quite poor estate. I mean, if she had had none of those children, would that be an advantage? My suspicion, both for the children and for society, the answer would be yes.
Isn't this better for society, Bishop of Croydon?
There's a wider issue here, which is to do with who is, I think Steve brought it up earlier, who is going to say who should be allowed to have children and who shouldn't?
The magistrate.
Are we now going to start saying that, for example, bankers shouldn't be allowed to have children because the value systems that have sustained the banking system are corrupt? I mean, it's not ridiculous.
This is the route you just referred to, groups and the Nazis.
Yeah.
My proposal isn't about groups or professions. It's always about individuals. The same individuals. Children, but the individual parents.
Much as it might offend your unimpeachable liberal principles, this idea, the very mention of it, Bishop, surely you should be taking your tinted spectacles off and wanting to protect children. How do you stop children being born into these circumstances?
How can you have tinted spectacles when you're dealing with grassroots communities every day of the year? When you're dealing with people dealing with terrible moral difficulties? You know, we're not dealing with categories of unfit parents. We're dealing with individuals who have their particular circumstances, their particular dilemmas, and as we heard earlier, some people cope very badly. My wife is a health visitor on a big London estate.
She sees it.
No, she sees it every day. But you don't simply bring in laws that say, well, here's one panacea that will, you know, set us up for the next couple of years.
Richard Dawkins?
But we already do it when we take children away from their parents.
No, you see that?
What's the difference?
There's massive difference.
There is a massive difference. And the problem is, Richard, we make so many mistakes at that.
Yeah.
There is no infallible way through this.
Of course we make mistakes.
That's true.
But it's the same mistakes. I mean, it's the...
No, we make mistakes sometimes when taking a child away. Who decides? Who plays God in this whole thing? I thought that you didn't like people playing God.
People play God when they decide whether a child should be taken away from its parents. We already do it. What's the difference?
Nicky Bowman, you grew up in very difficult circumstances, parents alcoholics, but you fought through it, you survived, and you're here. And you've been, you know, you've 5 siblings and you've been successful. So does this concern you?
Yes, greatly. I think, first of all, I know plenty of bad parents who aren't addicted to anything. Secondly, I think one of the main reasons that myself and my siblings survived our childhoods as well as we did is that we had each other. And as the youngest of 6, in fact, I would be the baby that wouldn't be. I'm the person that wouldn't exist in this scenario. And I think fundamentally what it doesn't do is it doesn't give, surely, the mother, because this is a bill that's about mothers rather than parents, but a mother, any incentive. If you're a mother and you're aware that you have a problem, is this going to incline you to ask for help? Or is this going to incline you to keep your problem hidden? And I think one of the biggest problems with alcoholism is that it tends to be very secretive and hidden, and that isolates the children and makes things worse, not better.
A hugely complex issue. You've had the last word. And would you actually show your appreciation to Mario for coming over from the Netherlands and talking to us about this? We appreciate it. Put your hands together for it. Thank you very much.